Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our Brute Quintessence Lass, who's a level 31, has 1.6 million XP and only needs 10,000 to go to get to level 32 and 32 million influence. I've been working on Jenny Firkins and she finally has given me a story arc. We don't have any clues yet, so we're just at the beginning of it. And she says, a group of scientists are under attack by the devouring Earth. They're doing critical work towards understanding and maybe even reversing the process that creatures uses that creatures use, I guess, to convert people into their own kind. Rescue the scientists. So we're now doing some of our contacts, or starting our first contact in Founders Falls. It took me from wherever you saw me leave off last until being half a bead from level 32 to get into her story arc, which I just did in the last mission, fighting some Devouring Earth and rescuing a few people who were being attacked. And now we're going into this storyline. My guess is this is the possibly the Unity Plague. I can never remember, guys, which content gives out which story arcs, so we'll just see what the clues say as we get into it. We have enough recipes to add an accuracy level 35 invention trainer, and that will be added probably to our Midnight Grass power when we get it, which will happen probably right after this mission. So I made sure to bring you guys back so you could see us level up and pick our cool new final primary power. So the Devouring Earth, you haven't. I don't know if you guys have watched me fight these guys so far. The big pain is the Sentry. Without build up, it's almost impossible to hit him because he's a really high defense, especially if he's red. If he's orange, it's not as bad. And then he keeps putting down the cairns, which make it so that he doesn't take any damage. I have to keep running out of the cairn, and then he puts another cairn down, and it ends up taking a really long time. It got so bad that in the previous mission, I actually tried to skip one of the sentries. And I almost was able to, but I had to go get past him to go to like the final where the final hostage was. It was like in a little corner, and I had to go. So it was sort of like this, but it wasn't a lab. And you can imagine this having like one sentry here, and I just ignored him and went through the rest of the layer. And then it turned out there was a little room past here with a hostage, and I had to go past him to get to it, and so I was forced to fight him. I don't normally skip enemies like that, but it was quite annoying to fight him, and I probably should have grabbed some more accuracy before I came in here, but that's alright, we'll figure it out. We do get a buff from Soul Drain. The disadvantage of that is it has to hit, right? And it was not hitting the Sentry, and he was by himself, so I couldn't use the other guys to kind of buff up over against him. Now this Tree of Life just heals these guys. I just don't even care at this point. I can do so much damage to them so fast that I'm not going to try to run him out of the Tree of Life. But the Cairn means that you can't do any damage at all. You're doing, instead of doing 24 and 12, which is, by the way, the resistance is to smashing, instead of doing something like 24 and 12, you're doing 2 and 1. And so that's going to take forever. And then if you can't hit him either, it takes even more forever. And it was quite frustrating. So, yeah, I was trying to skip the... I was trying to skip the cairns, the sentries. Hopefully we won't have too many of them, and we'll be able to just beat up the rest of the guys without a problem. And one thing we do have is, having leveled up, we won't face any red sentries in this particular mission. Now, I'm not going to lower the difficulty to +0 for the rest of the missions. Obviously, this one's now +0 because, relative to us, because we just leveled. But I'm not going to turn the rest of it to +0 because the rest of it would be too easy. And there aren't generally that many sentries. It's not usually like the Circle of Thorns where you have like multiple specters in every spawn. Here you get a sentry every level maybe, and so you can kind of stomach them. Let's see here. We have to save 5 researchers. We haven't seen any yet. One of the issues with the stealth is that these guys don't like to become animated until after they see you. We had this problem with Tiger Strike as well, where we had to, like, you can't attack them until they become animated and see you, otherwise you can't target them. So I may be turning the stealth off occasionally. We'll see. Our stealth power here, the energy cloak. Now this isn't quite like a stalker hide, so we actually can be detected by these guys. If we stand close enough and we wait, they can actually see us. Don't need all those greens, so we'll just go ahead and start using them up and see if we can get some more yellows. So I do like it when we level up early in an episode, because that means we can get our new power, especially when we're getting new powers. If it's a level where it's just slots, it doesn't matter, but when we're getting a new power, what I like is that if we've leveled up in the beginning or early part of the episode so that we can level up and then do another mission, we all get to see together how the new power works. So we're going to get to see Midnight Grasp as soon as we get out of this mission, which is pretty cool. What I probably should have done, because I was actually in the base right before I logged out the last time, and what I probably should have done was make the accuracy enhancer that I'm going to put into Midnight Grasp. But I didn't think about it as I was doing other stuff in the base. I was trying to figure out if I needed to get another salvage rack, but the current one we have is still less than half full, so I'm not going to bother. They cost like 15,000 prestige, and we only have like 30,000. And it's not that we can't get it, because it's not like there's a huge amount that we're saving up for. What I'd like to get is an enhancement table, so that I can start putting enhancements that I want to keep there, and I don't have to keep them on my person or not. I can go ahead and invent the recipes if I need to, and then just stick them in the table. This way I can get the salvage emptied out without just dumping it, and then possibly needing that salvage later. So anyway, I was thinking about getting another salvage rack so that I could organize my salvage, put yellows in one, orange in the other, or something. But there's so much space in the existing salvage rack, I'd rather just try and save up for an enhancement table. Now, we did to pay the rent. It's only 100 prestige to do that. Okay, I wanted to come down here and make sure that this was a dead end, because, again, we need to defeat all. So we can't leave any stone unturned. We can't leave any devouring earth on this level, or we're going to have to come back. Alright, so as we go, I'd like to talk about role-playing games again, and again, we're going to talk about sort of tabletop role-playing, playing D&D with your friends, with people you know, maybe with strangers if you're doing it in Adventurers League, but hopefully if it's Adventurers League, you're maybe going to a local game store when there's no pandemic going on, or doing it in Zoom with people that you may not know when you start, but after you start playing for a while and you run through some adventures, you'll know them, hopefully, and you'll become friends with them. So you're playing the game with people that you know, and maybe people that you're very good friends with, maybe people that you only know a little bit, and you're on an adventure, or you're supposed to be going on an adventure, and you make up a character. And what I want to talk about in terms of making up the character and also role-playing the character is the necessity to have what I want to call, for lack of a better term, manners. And I've mentioned some of this before, but I definitely want to address it. And this comes from a very frustrated DM who, and I think is a very important key, he's frustrated, right? I say he, I don't know really if it's he or she, but we'll just, to make it easier so I don't have to say he, she, he's frustrated. He set up a really cool adventure. I guess his players are playing the Ghosts of Salt Marsh, and he set up this really cool adventure. And he thought it was going to be really fun for them. It was like an interlude. They needed to repair a ship, and he had prepared this really cool pirate town. He made up a bunch of like games that they could play, like gambling games. He made up a bunch of NPCs, a couple of side quests, like a jobs board. He made up tavern and um, I don't know, a temple for the cleric to explore, whatever. He made up all this really cool stuff, and he spent hours and hours and hours. He made up maps. He wrote up NPCs. He did all the work that you do when you're a DM and you're prepping to do a town, which is usually an awful lot of work. So he did all this work, and the players were there. At first, he had no opportunity to get them to the town, but he just figured, well, if they're on ships, we'll use it eventually. And eventually, their ship was damaged, and the closest place was this pirate town. And so he was like, "Great, we get to go to the town." So they got to the town, and the warlock, who is chaotic good, and this is relevant because somebody said afterwards that, if it was lawful good characters, maybe they should have acted this way. And my argument was, I don't care if they're lawful good, they should not have roleplayed this. They got there, and the warlock said, "This is a pirate town. It's scary." They contracted to repair their ship. He said, "While we're waiting for the ship to be repaired, let's go hide in our room, like in their inn room, like in their hotel room." And so they basically, they role-played with each other in the hotel room, but they hid in their room, ordered room service, and never came out. And they didn't explore the town. They didn't go into any shops. They didn't go to taverns. They didn't, visit the temple, whatever. They didn't do anything. They did not engage at all with the adventure, the setting, the town that the DM had created. And so he said, has anybody ever been, sort of frustrated like this? And I can't remember which way is the way up. I think it's this way. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. No, that's the way down. Okay. And so, of course, we offered our sympathies. But then somebody came in and said, "Look, you messed up as a DM. You gave the players an adventure they didn't want to go on. So, yeah, they did what their character would do and didn't go on the adventure. They hid in their room. It's what their characters would do." And I argue that I don't think that that's an acceptable answer. That as a matter of courtesy, as a player in a game, I don't care if you're in Adventurers Club and the DM's got some adventure they created in Adventurers Club and you don't know the DM that well, or if it's your best friend doing it or what. I don't care. As a player, it is your responsibility to go on the adventures that the DM has made up for you. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to accept quests that you don't think your character would accept. We talked about this at one point, how a DM had gotten mad at her players because she had these hags that wanted to eat babies, and the quest was to go find babies and give them to the hags, and the players were like, "No effing way." And then she had the players' gods be mad at them because they didn't do it or something like that. And that's a totally different story. But those players still engaged with the content, right? They said, my character wouldn't do this, and instead, we're going to fight the hag. That's a completely acceptable answer to that quest. They're still engaging with the story. They're still interacting with the hag. They're still using, walking onto the battle map that the DM created. They're still engaging with the NPCs and the world that the DM created, right? Now, maybe the DM didn't like what they did, and, you can argue about that. But they were still engaging in the content. What they didn't say was, because we don't want to give this hag little babies, we're going to go hide in the room and just wait till this all blows over. That is not what you're supposed to do as a player of D&D. You play D&D to play it. And so if you know that the DM, and you have to know this, the DM has spent time prepping an adventure, and they've made maps, and they've built up NPCs, you should be attempting to do whatever you can as a player to find any possible way, any possible excuse you can think of as to why your character would go on the adventure the DM puts in front of you. Even if it's not accepting the quest that the NPC puts in front of you, you should still want to go on the adventure anyway. Try to find a way to make your character go on the adventure. As a player, you have basically one job in a role-playing game, and that is to go on the adventure. If you don't want to go on adventures, don't play D&D. Right? It's sort of like playing Call of Cthulhu and saying, I don't want to investigate cosmic horror. I don't want to investigate like weird paranormal things. That's what Call of Cthulhu is about. You are called an investigator in that game rather than an adventurer. Your character doesn't have to be an investigative reporter. They could be, a wealthy dilettante or something who just happens to be curious about mysteries of the world. But they better be somebody who's willing to explore the mysteries of the world, because that's what the game Call of Cthulhu is about. And if you don't want to explore the unknown mysteries of the world and possibly go insane doing it, don't play Call of Cthulhu. Right? Don't sit in your room and go, we're not going to go anywhere because we don't want to go insane. Then don't play Call of Cthulhu. One of the DMs actually said that, and I'm going to say she because I think it's a female. It has sort of a female name on the forum. She said that she had a player once who played a paladin who, I guess for roleplay reasons, became a pacifist, and he gave up his great sword +1. And he didn't want to, he wanted to be a pacifist. And well, that could work, right? If the paladin goes, maybe goes cleric, multi-classing after that, and becomes like life domain that's part of their god or something, and the paladin, or maybe bard, I don't know, whatever, something with more healing abilities, and they do a lot of healing, and then wearing their armor and shield, they stand in front of the rest of the party and taunt the enemy and say, go ahead and attack me, but I'm not going to lift a finger to fight you. That is completely viable, because that character is still engaging with the content that the DM produced. But you don't let the DM do all this work to prepare for you and then say, all this stuff you prepared, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hide in my room. It's your responsibility as a player. It's a matter of good manners that you have to be willing to have your character go on the adventures. Otherwise, the DM is going to get frustrated. This DM was extremely frustrated and unhappy. And if these players have continued to do this, since then he's had a conversation with his players and they've come to some agreements, and that's great. But if his players continue to do this to him, sooner or later this DM would have said, I don't want to DM anymore. Is that what you want? If you don't want to play, if you don't want him to DM anymore, just stop playing. Don't make his life miserable by not going on the adventure that he created for you. Let's talk to Jenny, and then we'll continue with our thoughts. She says, Dr. Ito and his lab crew send you their thanks, Quintessence Last. They're relocating to a new lab so they continue their research into the process that turns people into devouring Earth creatures. These biological contaminants they found in normal human blood are very worrying, especially since the same contaminants exist in the recently devoured. I've asked Dr. Ito to keep me apprised of their work. Clues is what I'm looking for. Yep, the Unity Plague. All right, so we're on the Unity Plague, but guys, we're going to Luminary, and we're going to level up before we do anything else, and we'll continue talking about good manners in role-playing games and what that means for players as well as DMs afterwards. But first, let's level up and get our, what many people would call the signature power, not just for this character, but for any character. They would argue that your level 32 power is the signature power. For martial arts, it's Eagle's Claw. I personally like Crane Kick better, but I just happen to like the animation for Crane Kick better. Okay, so train up to a new level of power, and we are going to take Midnight Grasp. So let's take a look at the details. It does a 70 negative damage to the target, a 3 magnitude immobilize on the target, minus to hit, 5 ticks of negative energy, so a damage over time. It taunts, and it gives you some rage, and it does fire damage when you use Fire Embrace, so we don't care about that. So Midnight Grasp, and that looks like a single target. For some reason, I thought it was an AOE, so we're going to put that over there. And I want to space some of this stuff out. So these are our AOEs. And technically, of course, this is also an AOE, but it works on single targets, so that's fine. I'm going to pause the video right here, make an accuracy enhancer for Midnight Grasp, put it in, and then when we come back, we're going to be ready to do our next mission. So I'll be right back. Alright folks, we are back, so let's take a look. We've got our Midnight Grasp buffed up to 1.37. Recharge time on this is pretty good. It's 15 seconds, so probably a single recharge will be enough. How much endurance does this thing cost? Probably a sick amount. 11 endurance. Yeah, we're going to need an endurance reducer, so I think we're going to go single accuracy, single recharge, single endurance, and then triple damage for it. This should fill out our attack chain pretty nicely. We now have 5 attacks that we can use sort of as regular attacks. And then we have our AoE buffs and power transfers over here, and our taunt, and our fear up here, which is not that useful of a power. But that's okay. We've got all those powers, and now we're going to call Jenny, and she says, I just spoke to Dr. Victor Ito, that researcher you rescued from the devouring Earth. He said that his lab is nearing a major breakthrough in determining the source of those strange biological contaminants they found both in normal human blood and in the recently devoured. The problem is they need some recently devoured creatures in order to confirm their conclusions. Will you capture some devouring Earth creatures? Yes, we're going to capture the devouring Earth. So we're going to be in an outdoor mission here. Capture several test subjects. So let's see what they want us to grab. Investigate the area, 2 test subjects to capture. So I don't remember where these guys are, so we'll just take a look. So yeah, in terms of manners in a role-playing game, I mean, several people came in and said, look, it's the DM's responsibility to create adventures that the players want. And if the DM doesn't do that, then the players have every right not to go on the adventure. And I would say kind of yes and no. Yes, the DM should make every possible effort to come up with adventures that he or she thinks the players will enjoy. I mean, that's why we do the DMing. I haven't come up with a single single adventure that I think my players will hate and tried to give it to them. As I mentioned in my comments on that thread, I found myself, and I can tell you guys, I don't say it in post because I know one of my players sometimes reads what I post, and I don't want spoilers for her. But I'm doing the Shrine of the Kuo-toa, and I've got this really cool map for it, and it's a really cool classical old school adventure. And I really want her to play in it because she's never played an old school adventure, and I want her to see it. And I know my other friend, I think, will enjoy it, and I think everybody's going to enjoy it. I think it's cool. It's really hard, and I do think they want challenges, and I think my one best friend would like some more challenge than I've been giving them. And so they really like challenges. I think they're going to really like it. And as I've been, adding all these Kuo-toa to the map, I've been cackling with glee. Have I been cackling with glee over, I think I'm going to kill them all? No, of course not. I'm not trying to kill them all. I was cackling with glee because I think they're going to really like this. Oh man, these guys are going to love this part. Oh, this part's really cool. I hope they find this secret door because this is a really cool section of the lair. And let me see if I can give them a little bit of a hint so that maybe they'll find the door. They'll know to look for it, And there is a devoured right there, test subject. And there's another one. So yeah, I came over here because I was pretty sure that they were here. Let's clean this up, and then we'll go over there. So yeah, I'm like smiling, chuckling to myself. And let's try Midnight Grasp. Let's see how it goes. Nice. I'm chuckling to myself because I'm thinking about how much I'm expecting them to enjoy it. Not because they're going to hate it. I'm not trying to ruin the adventure for them. I want them to have fun. Okay? So no game master is going to purposely make adventures for you to be miserable. But as a player, the game master can only do so much. First of all, the game master has to also make adventures that the game master will like to play, right? You don't want the game master making up adventures that they hate, right? Like, I would not enjoy a Game of Thrones style political intrigue game. I don't like political intrigue. I'm not into it in reading material. One of the reasons I didn't like Game of Thrones because it was all political intrigue, and I'm not a fan. Not just of Game of Thrones, but of political intrigue. But I also Um, so I'm not a fan of political intrigue. I would not want to run a Game of Thrones style game. And if my players were all like, "We want to play in a Game of Thrones style game," I would say, "Okay, someone run it," because and I'll see you guys later. I don't think I'm going to play in it. It's just not. It's just not for me. I'm not being like a spoiled brat about it. You have to know what you like and what's fun. So I think that yes, the DM should be making every effort to give players what they enjoy. But if the players want to do something the DM is going to hate, the DM isn't responsible for doing that. And also, the DM can, they can't please every player at once. And sometimes, it'll turn out that different players like different things. What if you have some players that like combat and some players that like roleplay? You can't give them both at the same time. They're mutually exclusive. You can roleplay a little bit during a battle, but you can't do a lot of roleplay during a battle because you're, doing the combat. And if you do too much talking, it actually takes an action. So, um, investigate the area. So there must be a glowy, and there it is. So, as a player, you should realize that your DM is trying to please you, and that the DM is imperfect. And while trying to please you, they might make up an adventure that's not your favorite thing in the world to do. But you sure as heck shouldn't, as a player, once the adventure is put in front of you, say, screw this, I'm going to hide in my room, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to engage with the whole entire city that you created. I'm not going to engage with any of the NPCs you made up. This isn't about taking a job from the jobs board that you don't think your character would do and doing the job as written. But you could try to work for the guy that the jobs board person is going after and defeat them. So the Thieves Guild puts up something on the jobs board, help us steal X. You don't have to steal X. You could go to the person and say, hey, these guys are trying to steal it, pay us, and we'll guard you. You're still engaging with the material in the way your character would do, and you didn't make the DM have wasted their time in making up all this stuff, and then nobody goes on the adventure. As a player, your only responsibility is to go on the adventure in some form or other. Engage with the material that the DM has created. Okay? Now, if I have a DM who gets us involved in political intrigue and that's not really my thing, I would do my best to get involved. I would say out of character to the DM, this isn't my thing. If there's any way we can speed this along and do something else, that'd be great. If the DM were to say to me, look, this whole campaign is going to be Game of Thrones type political intrigue, I would then say to the DM, okay, let's find a way that my character and I can gracefully exit the campaign so that you guys can have fun, and I'll see you when you come up with the next campaign. No hard feelings. I'm not mad. It's just not what I enjoy. I want to go into dungeons and explore them and unlock the secrets of the in the depths under the earth and fight monsters and kill ghouls and stuff like that. And yes, I like to roleplay, but I don't want to roleplay about political intrigue and who's going to be the next heir to the throne. It's just I don't like that stuff. It's just never been for me. It's never been something I like, and it's absolutely never been something I've ever wanted to write. And I don't know that it's something I would want to play in. I mean, I would say maybe I'll try it and I'll do my best, but at some point, if I'm not having fun, without trying to, you shouldn't get insulted. Just understand this isn't my taste, and I'll just step aside until we, do an adventure that I would probably like more. I mean, look, my best friend said if he was going to do a setting, he might do like Explorer's Guide to Wildemount and set it in the Critical Role world. And as much as it would pain me to do, I would have to say to my best friend, count me out. Let me know when you're going to do a different world or somebody else is going to DM or when you want me to DM and I'll come back. But I'm not playing in Exandria. I don't like that world. I can stomach the Forgotten Realms. I'm also not interested in playing in Eberron. Not a fan. Right? So you have to know what you like, but you do that upfront, honest as a player. You don't say, okay, I'm going to play in Eberron and then say, while we're in Eberron, I'm going to hide in my house because I don't like the setting. And my character's going to hide in my house and is never going to go on adventures and doesn't want to go on adventures and wants to be a pacifist, like the one character who wanted to go hide in a cave and knit. Right? Then don't play that character. And if you don't like the world, don't play the game. But don't try to make the DM somehow pander to your character. That's really not fair. And it's not fair to allow the DM to do all this work without telling them that you have tastes and you won't go outside your taste for roleplay. You let the DM do all this work, and then you say, I'm not going to engage with your work. That is not fair. You don't do that to people. All right. So she says the creatures you captured have already been picked up by the lab's research team, and we know what's going to happen, guys, right? They're going to now break out of the lab. They won't hurt them. After all, the critters used to be Paragon citizens. This manifesto you found really worries me, Quintessence Lass. I don't know what to make of it. So I haven't been reading the clues too much because we already know about the Unity Plague. We found a manifesto that talks about the coming Unity, right? Which is that the Devouring Earth are going to create Unity by like turning us all into them. All right, we're at 30 minutes, guys, so I think we're going to stop here. Didn't use Midnight Grass too much, but we used it a little bit. Does good damage, especially when we've got Fury going, which is pretty cool. It'll be doing even better damage when we've got more slots on it, but that'll take a few levels because I think we're going to try and work some of our other powers here. We've got 3 slots coming. I think we're going to finish Siphon Life and add 1 more to Energy Cloak, and we'll keep doing that sort of thing, 2 and 1 or whatever. We're pretty well slotted on the defense side for right now, so we're going to focus 2/3 on the offensive side, which is really hurting for slots, and 1/3 on the defensive side. And we'll do that for the next couple of levels. But until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.